Restoring Men in History, a fantastic one today. The Warrior Ethos, Warrior Society, Warrior Culture. Stephen Pressfield's The Warrior Ethos. We're going to dig out a few pieces from a few chapters and let's start with a story about Sparta and the mothers of Sparta. And these are good stories. I love this. This is fantastic stuff for you men. Why? We want you guys to be better. We want you men to reach your potential. So let's go. This is from ancient Sparta. A messenger returned from Sparta from a battle. The women clustered around. To one, the messenger said, "Mother, I bring sad news. Your son was killed facing the enemy." The mother said, "He is my son." "Your other son is alive and unhurt," said the messenger. "He fled from the enemy." The mother said, "He is not my son." A different messenger returned from a battle and was held by a Spartan mother. "How fares our country, Herald?" The messenger burst into tears. "Mother, I pity you," he said. "All 5 of your sons have been killed facing the enemy." "You fool," said the woman. "I did not ask of my sons. I asked whether Sparta was victorious." "Indeed, mother, our warriors have prevailed." "Then I am happy," said the mother, and turned and walked home. 2 warriors, brothers, were fleeing from the enemy back toward the city. Their mother happened to be on the road and saw them running toward her. She lifted her skirts above her waist. "Where do you 2 think you're running?" "Back here, from whence you came." The most famous Spartan story, you probably heard this, guys, is also the shortest. Spartan mother handed her son his shield as he prepared to march off to battle. She said, "Come back with this or on it." That's a warrior culture. That's the warrior ethos. You get it? And think about those mothers. And let's read this. This is still in chapter 1. The warrior ethos, what do you think it embodies? Embodies virtues. We've talked many times about virtues. I think they're incredibly important for this society. Courage, honor, loyalty. How much do we hear about loyalty today? Not very much. Integrity. Remember, it's not all about yourself. It's about your fellow men, loyalty to them. Selflessness. Again, not about yourself, about your fellow men and others. That most warrior societies, let's stop here for a second, then we'll go on to the next piece. Well, let's go ahead and read it. That most warrior societies believe must be inculcated from birth. Now, let's look at first the certain virtues. What builds up courage, what detracts from it? We'll get into that in chapter 2. This is chapter 1. Do you have the courage to stand for your fellow men? And by the way, courage could be verbally standing up to the assault on our culture, right? You could be a cultural warrior who stands up for our traditions and the culture of America. Loyalty to your fellow men, your comrades, the men battling beside you in the culture war, right? We got filmmakers in the groups that want to battle and make films and stories that battle in the culture. Because the culture is so important, right? You want to have a warrior culture. You got to have the storytellers, right? Kurt. Selflessness. Are you thinking about your fellow men? As a leader, are you thinking about your people? We've seen in California with the fires that doesn't seem like those leaders have thought very much about their people at all. Washington, same thing. Debt and deficits that are rising. It seems like the leaders don't care that your eggs are going up because they keep sending money to Ukraine. But let's go on. England, same thing. So think if our leaders embodied these certain virtues: courage, honor, loyalty, integrity, selflessness. And think if in your life, can you have more loyalty for your best male friends? Can you give them more loyalty? Can you have courage for them and yourself? Can you have courage for the culture and battling in the culture war? Selflessness. Are you always thinking about yourself, or are you thinking about your friends? Are you thinking about how you can help them get their dreams and achieve their goals, or are you just thinking about your own? Honor, courage, right? Loyalty, selflessness, integrity. Integrity. Do you do what you say? If you say you're going to be there, do you do it? All right, let's go into chapter 2, and we'll get into society. And I just want to read this in chapter 2. The warrior ethos is not at bottom a manifestation of only male aggression or of the masculine will that dominates. Its foundation is society-wide. It rests on the will and resolve of mothers and wives and daughters, and in no few instances of female warriors to defend what? Their children, their home soil, and the values of their culture. How are we doing in America? Let's compare this to America and Sparta. Those three mothers that you heard the stories of, what were they doing? They were defending Sparta. They were imbuing, they were inculcating their children. By the way, as a side note, the boys stayed with the moms till about age 7. Then they were off with the men. So that was going to be fine after that. But think about what those mothers taught it in those by saying, come back with your children on it. Think about sending the guys back. She wanted them to have what? Loyalty to the other men, loyalty to the country. Those mothers were teaching, they were inculcating virtues in their children at the beginning of the story. And that's what the women here have to do, right? And that's why we like homeschooling, so the mothers can instill the values, not the Marxist indoctrination centers at universities and schools and high schools and junior high schools. So anybody that can homeschool, homeschool. To defend their children, their home soil, and the values of their culture. Our culture is so important, right, Kurt? We need good stories. We need to protect and fight and be warriors for our culture. So think about women, wives defending. They wouldn't be pushing the trans movement, right? Confusing their boys. They would be instilling in them the warrior ethos, warrior virtues, right? And what is our culture doing? Think about Daniel Penny. What does that message send? You're not teaching courage when you punish courage in New York City and Los Angeles, right? If you advance and honor courage, you'll edify people with it. You'll build it up, right? You'll increase in it. They're not doing that in New York City. They punished Daniel Penny for courage. What do we want the mothers doing? Well, we don't want the mothers focused here on single issues and putting tampons in men's bathrooms and boys' bathrooms in high school, right? So it's up to the women too to defend culture, not advance Marxism, not advance that nonsense. Defend their children, their home soil, and the values of their culture. And it's up to us men to defend the culture, of course, and instill it in our boys and instill it in our fellow men. That's why we do the groups, right? Instill values and virtues and the Constitution and the Republic and history, right? Defending the values of your culture, you can't put your schools and you can't allow these schools to have these Department of Education, these Marxist indoctrination centers. And think about the people that come across the border and then go in Marxist indoctrination centers. If we want to protect American culture, we've got to defend it. So defending the values and cultures of your children is what they watch, right? What they read, the books they read, the schools they go to. You have to monitor that, right? Because how many stories, let's look at the number of hours that a kid may watch in movies. What does Hollywood do? Well, they're a bad indoctrination center. So there's an attack on your children for your values in the state of California, obviously, even wants to remove the parents. So the mothers and the fathers must protect the children. I'm only talking about the mothers also because of those first 3 stories. They were involved, they were in it. So chapter 3, the warrior ethos, where did it evolve from? It evolved from the primary need of the spear-toting, rock-throwing, animal skin-wearing hunting band. The need to what? Survive. This need could be only met how? Collectively, in a group of men, right? Working together in unison. To bind the band together, an ethos involved, a hunter's ethos. Every warrior virtue proceeds from this. Courage, selflessness, love of, and get this one's important, Mr. Wilson. Love of and loyalty to one's comrades. How much of that do we have? Do you even have comrades? Do you have friends? If you don't have friends as men, you need one. If you don't have a men's group, I think it's a good idea to get in one. You can do more in a group than isolated and alone. And it's good for your health. Every warrior virtue proceeds from this. Courage, selflessness, love of, and loyalty to one's comrades. I want to hit this hard. Love of and loyalty. Warrior society has loyalty to your band of brothers. Loyalty, Henry V, you remember that? Loyalty to one's comrades. Loyalty to your best friends. Loyalty to your male friends. And a warrior society, you got warrior society, civilized society, and then a feminized society, right? Feminized society puts tampons in women's bathrooms and focuses on single feminine issues. Warrior society, you're going to be hanging around the men more. You're going to have great bonds and camaraderie with your male friends, and you're going to have that camaraderie like we do in the men's groups. Cigars, camaraderie, talking about deep philosophical issues, history, and having deep discussions. But we're not afraid to argue with each other. Nobody gets their feelings hurt, right? Because we're men, right? Patience, self-command, the will to endure adversity. Can you endure adversity? A warrior can endure adversity, right? And that comes from what? The hunting band's needs to survive. At a deeper level, the warrior ethos recognizes that each of us as well has enemies inside himself, vices and weaknesses like envy and greed, laziness, selfishness, and the capacity to lie, cheat, and do harm to our brothers. And that's what we don't want to do, right? We never want to do harm to our brothers, right? Our male friends, right? Selfishness. We want to be thinking about our brothers' goals and dreams and helping them get it if we can. Vices and weaknesses, right? What does Marxism teach? Marxism teaches envy, right? They try to take too. They try to steal, cheat, and take your property, private property, right? That's what Marxism teaches, right? Communism teaches that. The tenets of the warrior ethos directed inward inspire us to contend against and defeat those enemies, what? Within our own hearts. So you get in the right band of brothers, and that'll help with that as well, right? Because some people in many studies say you're the average of the 5 people you hang around the most, right? So if you're hanging around 5 great guys, like I have the opportunity to hang around, these guys enrich me. They make me better, right? We just the other night had this incredible Orange County meeting, Orange County, California. And there was like a meeting before and a meeting after. And the meeting after is always Kurt, Matt, Dave Harrington, and me, right? It's the 4 of us sitting there for hours longer. It's really late for me, and it's worth it because these guys are outstanding. You, Matt, you, Dave, you, Kurt, outstanding. And all the men are outstanding, right? All the men that were there that night, they're all incredible men. But they can all make me better, right? They enrich me. That conversation from that night, which went on hours and hours, enriched me. Having that group enriches me. It makes me better. Those men make me better because they're great men. But there's like a meeting before and a meeting after. The longer you're in the group and the more hours you spend with other great men, the more camaraderie you will build and will increase. And some of these guys, we've been together almost a decade, right? Matt, Dave, Kurt for sure. He was one of the first. So you build camaraderie by doing that. I can't encourage it enough. And defeating, it's your own internal battle, right? You don't want to be envy. You want to say, what? I can get that house if you want that house, or I can make that movie if you want to make that movie. What are your goals? And remember, don't limit yourself. Don't have limiting beliefs. Vices and weaknesses like envy. Selfishness. It's a weakness, right? You want to be thinking about the men. And what if leaders were thinking about actually this country instead of serving the Unipart? What if they were thinking about how we make Americans' lives better? What if they had these virtues? How much better would this country be if they were trained in these virtues and followed them? Just a leader thinking about his men, thinking about his people. You got to love your people and love your men. You're there to serve them. All right, now let's go into what they say in chapter 6. This is chapter 6. Courage in particular, stalwartness in the face of death, must be considered what? The foremost warrior virtue. So you got to have courage in standing up for the culture you want to maintain. You got to have courage for standing up for your fellow men. It's considered the foremost warrior virtue. I think Churchill said something, said without courage, none of the rest matter, right? Something like that. Now let's go into the dictionary defines from this book here. The dictionary defines ethos as the moral character, nature, disposition, and customs of a people or a culture. You see why it's worth fighting for? See, we have to protect the sovereignty of America. Ethos is derived from the same Greek word as ethics. We've talked about Aristotle's ethics. We should do it again. The warrior ethos is a code of conduct. As a man, you need a code of conduct, and that does a lot of things. If you have a code of conduct and you follow it, who can trust you more? Your male friends know where you're coming from. Your girlfriend knows where you're coming from. Your wife knows. Girls and men both know where you're coming from because you live by code. Men need a code. So the warrior ethos is a code of conduct, a conception of what? Of right and wrong. So you got to have a code that you know what's right and wrong. What does relativism sell you on? Relativism sells there's no right or wrong. You see how that would mess up a warrior culture? For example, there's no truth, beauty, and goodness in it either, right? Philosophically, right? Because men cannot be women and women cannot be men, and yet they put tampons in women's and men's bathrooms, and some people believe men can get pregnant. Crazy people. And again, some women are driving that. So again, it's up to the women too. Because we did a piece where we read about the women that were pushing that, right? You got to have a conception of right and wrong, of virtues and of vices. So also those men you hang around, if they have a lot of virtues, you're going to increase in virtues probably. If they have a lot of vices, you might increase in vices. So particularly important for you men, especially if you have uninvolved fathers, and the chances are most of you are going to have uninvolved or absent fathers, at least a high percentage, at least more than 50%. So get into the correct men's group that agree with your virtues, that build up your virtues, not build up your vices. The average of the 5 people you hang around, right? Now this says this: no one is born with the warrior ethos. So it's what we teach, right? It's what we teach. So society has to come together to teach it, right? It has to be taught in your home, not in the schools too. You got to homeschool, getting out of the Marxist indoctrination, such as critical race theory. What are the schools teaching in America right now? Victim because of your color. That doesn't help you succeed. That doesn't help you achieve things. If you're told you're not as good as somebody, if you're told because of your color you can't do it, that doesn't help you. Or of your age, or whatever it is that they're limiting you with. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help society, and it doesn't help us get along. And again, no one's born with it. So you men have to teach it to your sons. Don't leave it to Washington, D.C. They're not going to do it. They're going to teach the opposite. They're indoctrinating the opposite way. Right? Hollywood. They're indoctrinating the opposite way. Think about the sum total of all the movies you watch in your lifetime and what that's put in your soul. And then all the books the schools have you read. If you read a bunch of feminine books, that's not going to be fantastic for you. It's going to be terrible. If you read a bunch of masculine books and it reaffirms the virtues of courage and loyalty and these virtues, it's going to get in your soul. You want to get loyalty to your fellow men and comrades in your soul. Warrior society, civilized society, feminine society. And you at least want to be a civilized society with warrior values and a code of conduct and virtues, right? Like Patrick Henry and those guys, that was a civilized society, but Patrick Henry was very courageous. Washington was very courageous. There were many courageous men during that time, right? There still are today, but what I'm saying is it has to be inculcated and taught. And right now, through cultural Marxism in the institutions, it's not being taught. Not even being taught in the feminized church, right? No one is born with the warrior ethos, though many of its tenets appear naturally in young men and women of all cultures. So it appears, and you have to knock it out, right? Think of the bad indoctrination by going to Marxist indoctrination centers. I'm calling that schools. Hollywood, think how many movies they put in you. Think of how many movies your children or you watch from the time you're 6 to 30. What's going into your soul? Is it good for your soul or bad? You got to watch what goes into your soul. You got to watch what goes into your mind. Parents, you got to watch what goes in and control as much as you can. Hollywood, the schools, think of how much opposition your kids are getting to display courage and loyalty and selflessness versus a narcissistic society focused on self, and you can be a woman and we should have tampons and men's bathrooms, and you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim. Cultural Marxism. Oppressor, oppressed, you're a victim. You're not a victim. You can do things. You can do great things. We believe in you. We want you to be better. We want you to reach your potential, and we want to make Ben better. Thank you.